Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome. To officially welcome you all to the event, joining us on stage from the Coinbase India team, put your hands together for Pankaj Gupta.
Namaste doston and hello friends. I am so thrilled to welcome you all to today's Coinbase crypto event, our very first one in India. This event is being streamed to thousands of online viewers. Thank you all for joining us. First, a bit about myself. My name is Pankaj Gupta and I'm VP of Engineering at Coinbase and the site lead for Coinbase in India. I was born in Delhi. I grew up in a small place called Sarai in South Delhi. Today, I live with my family right here in Namma, Bengaluru. I wanted to share a little bit about how I got into crypto and Web3. For many years, I worked on this wonderful app on your left that is built on top of UPI, and hopefully many of you use daily. While working on UPI, I saw the power of open and interoperable networks. They can really spur innovation. They can really impact the lives of common people. And at this time, I chanced upon Bitcoin and Ethereum white papers with my computer science background and a little bit of fintech knowledge working on payments product. I could really understand the power and the huge leap of innovation that these new technologies are even beyond traditional financial systems and technology. I kept reading and tinkering, and I was hooked. So when Coinbase was looking to start a tech hub in India last year, I jumped on the opportunity. Now, the story of the last decade in India is the story of a country having gone through a staggering digital revolution. Whether it is the Aadhaar identity platform that provides identity to more than 1 billion Indians today, or the hockey stick growth of UPI, which all of us experience daily, or the standardization provided by GSTN, I think it's safe to say that India today is digitally one of the most advanced countries in the world today. More than 100 years ago, Mahatma Gandhi said, "I do not want my house to be walled in on all sides and my windows to be stuffed. I want the culture of all lands to be blown about my house as freely as possible." Thankfully, we live in a free India today. And as Mahatma Gandhi said, we need to continue to be welcoming to new ideas. The new and modern ideas of crypto and Web3 are these new ideas that I believe can help us, can really further our goals of economic freedom, as well as bring wealth and jobs to India to further our economy, to help build a self-reliant India and Atmanirbhar Bharat. And I'm beyond convinced that the next digital revolution, the next big thing is crypto and Web3. And not just me, right? All of you who are here, everyone who's watching online, as well as tens of millions of Indians who are engaged in this vibrant ecosystem in some shape or form, are convinced that crypto and Web3 are the next big things. And that's why we are here today. Friends, we have an action-packed agenda today. We will kick it off with a keynote by Brian Armstrong, co-founder and CEO of Coinbase. This will be followed by a product keynote by Surojit Chatterjee, our Chief Product Officer. Then I will have the pleasure of hosting Brian for a fireside chat. Hopefully it will be very interesting. This will be followed by a special guest talk by Balaji Srinivasan on open problems in Web3, following which we will have an entertaining fireside chat by none other than Tanmay Bhatt with both execs in Coinbase as well as industry leaders. Today's speakers include executives from Coinbase. I already talked about Brian and Surojit. We also have Manish Gupta, who's Executive VP of Engineering at Coinbase, and Sean Agrawal, who's the VP of Corp Development and the head of Coinbase Ventures. In addition to executives from Coinbase, we have special guests today. Tanmay and Balaji, again, I talked about. I'm thankful to Richa Joshi from EPNS and Gyan Lakshmi from Questbook also join us today. So, chalo shuru kare. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the utmost pleasure to welcome Mr. Brian Armstrong, co-founder and CEO of Coinbase, to the stage. Please give it up for Brian.
I'm very excited to be here today. We're here to celebrate Coinbase's long-term investment in India and the efforts that we're making to bring the power of this technology to this region of the world. My name is Brian Armstrong. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Coinbase. And I want to start by telling you a little bit about the origin of Coinbase. Back in 2010, I read the Bitcoin white paper for the very first time, and it talked about this new technology that had the potential to revolutionize how we move value all over the world. Fast forward to today, and what started was with just an application I started coding on my laptop has now become a global company. We have 89 million verified users all over the world. Just in Q4 of last year, we traded over $500 billion of crypto. Customers trust us to store crypto for them. We are storing $278 billion of crypto, and of course, we have 4,000 employees now all over the world, including many here in India, which I'll talk about in a minute. Last year, we were fortunate enough to become a public company listed on the NASDAQ in the US. So why did we start this company? Why are we all working so hard to advance this technology in the world? Well, it comes back to the mission for Coinbase, and it comes back to that initial insight that I had when I read the Bitcoin white paper more than 10 years ago now. So our mission as a company is to increase economic freedom in the world. We believe cryptocurrency offers a unique moment in history, along with the proliferation of the smartphone and internet access to everywhere in the world, to bring about economic freedom. Economic freedom is a term that economists use, kind of like GDP or something like that, and it looks at a number of different factors in society. Things like, are property rights enforced? Is there free trade? Can people start the companies they want to start, and can they work at the businesses they want to work at? Is the currency stable, and how prevalent are things like corruption and bribery? And what's so exciting about economic freedom, why it's such an important measure of the different countries of the world, is that it correlates positively with many things that we all want in society. Not just economic growth, but also things like higher life expectancy and income of the poorest 10%, better, even self-reported happiness and better treatment of the environment. And economic freedom is negatively correlated with things that we want to avoid: infant mortality, corruption, unemployment, even war. So it's this really incredible and powerful idea, which is that if we can inject good financial infrastructure, good property rights into countries all over the world, societies can benefit in really profound ways. So why is crypto such a unique moment in history to create this economic freedom? Well, this technology is inherently suited for economic freedom. If you want property rights, well, now anybody with a smartphone anywhere in the world can store their own wealth. Crypto also offers things like stablecoins. It offers ways for people to store their value in a way that it can't be eroded from them. Crypto is inherently global and cross-border, so it enables free trade. And of course, crypto doesn't care about who you are, what you look like, where you're from, where you were born. Anybody in the world can access it on a level playing field, which is a truly profound thing. There aren't these middlemen and gatekeepers. Now, India is especially an important market for us because it's the second largest country in the world, and a very large number of people here are still, I think something like 180 or 190 million are still unbanked or underbanked. And of course, India has shown a great willingness to adopt financial infrastructure with UPI, Aadhaar, India Stack, to help better their own lives and the lives of everybody in their communities. So how do we think crypto is going to evolve over time, and what is Coinbase doing to help that happen? Well, a lot of people think about cryptocurrency primarily today as a speculative asset, something that people trade and they hope it might go up and down or in value. And that's true. That is the early way that a lot of people are getting access to cryptocurrency today. They want to buy some of it. That's how it started in other countries as well as an asset class. But the potential of it is much, much more than that. And in countries like the United States, we're already seeing more than 50% of our active user base do something other than just trading of crypto. So what else are they doing? Well, crypto is moving beyond an investment, and it's also becoming a new financial system. So people are using it to make commerce payments. They're using it to earn a living. They're using it to borrow and lend, get access to credit, and even earn yield on their assets in novel ways. This is things like DeFi, for instance. And crypto is now going beyond even just new financial services. It's actually creating a new type of application platform where people are building all kinds of new applications, things like identity systems, voting and governance with DAOs, types of artwork with NFTs, and games, and basically every type of new application today by the best entrepreneurs in the world. They're looking at crypto to see how can we build on top of it as a new platform, just like the birth of the internet in the early 2000s. So Coinbase's role in all of this is that we try to build products that are trusted and easy to use. Cryptocurrency is still very new, it's very technical, it's kind of scary. And so we try to make it trusted in a number of ways. One of the ways we do that is we work proactively with regulators all over the world to try to make it trusted and regulated, and policymakers. We also work a lot on cybersecurity to ensure, and consumer protection to ensure customers are protected on our products and services. And then we also try to make crypto easier to use. You don't need to understand what a private key is, or a protocol, or a blockchain. You can turn on a light switch and use electricity even if you don't understand how electricity works. You can benefit from these technologies. And that's what we're doing with our products. We're trying to make them accessible to 1 billion people in the world and more. So let me talk for a minute about why I'm so excited about India in particular. So India, of course, is a country with incredible engineering talent. It's incredible entrepreneurial talent. And they've shown a really great willingness to embrace new technologies as a way to improve the world and their lives. And Coinbase's role here, it's going to be a very long-term game. We're making a long-term investment. We know it's not going to be a straight shot to bring this technology. We don't know exactly how it's going to evolve. But we're committed to working with bank partners, regulators, most importantly, the Indian people, because they've shown a real spark of interest in cryptocurrency, and there's a real desire to get access to some of these services and products. So I'm excited to announce that Coinbase now has 300 employees in India, and we'll have 1,000 employees here by the end of the year. We've already made $150 million in investments in Indian crypto startups, not Coinbase as a company, but Indian crypto startups, and we'll be making many more investments like that over time. I want to wrap by saying, before I turn it over to Surojit, our Chief Product Officer, I just want to wrap by saying a big thank you to the India team here at Coinbase, including Pankaj Gupta, Satya, and everybody on the team here. They're the ones who deserve the credit for making this happen and getting it to where it is today. So let's give them a big round of applause. And with that, I want to turn it over to Surojit Chatterjee, our Chief Product Officer. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Surojit Chatterjee. I'm Chief Product Officer at Coinbase. And I'm excited and a little bit humbled to be here today and having this opportunity to share with you an important announcement for Coinbase in India. Growing up in a small town near Kolkata, I had my brush with lack of financial inclusion pretty early on. And that's why this announcement is so personal to me. Let me tell you a story, and it may resonate with many of you who grew up around the same time in India as I was. Anyone recognizes these? Anyone ever used these? Okay, there are a few hands over there. you probably still have nightmares about these tokens. So these were the brass tokens you needed to withdraw money from your account, your bank account. Back then, I would tag along with my mom when she went to the local bank to withdraw cash. And the process used to be epic. Let me tell you the process. So you filled out a form. That's the first step. And then you stood in a line just like this, and then you got one of those tokens. So you take the token and you wait. Sometimes the wait is many hours. And you wait for your number to be called on the screen, or sometimes they'll just announce the number. And when they announce the number, by the way, you have a sense of accomplishment already that your number has come. But it's not done yet. You have to stand in another line like this. And maybe another hour or so will pass. And then you are at the front of the line, and then they will try to match your signature. And often, the signature would not match, so you repeat the whole process again. And sometimes, your child may lose the token, which happened in my case at least a couple of times. And I can't forget the scolding I got from my mom, because you have to go and pay a fine if you lose that token, and you have to start the process all over again. Now think about it for a moment. Why was it so difficult? Why was it so hard to take money from your own account? Now, at that time in India, there were only a few nationalized banks. In fact, in my town, there was only one bank, and the name of the bank had the word state in it. You can probably guess which bank it was. And less choice really meant less freedom. By the way, having said all that, I think my family were still the luckier ones. We at least had a bank account. At that time, hundreds of millions of Indian families were completely excluded from the financial system. Fast forward to today, things are a lot different. India has made tremendous progress in a relatively short time in financial inclusion and technological innovation. And we think there are two key drivers for that. Number one is this rapid proliferation of mobile internet. Everybody has a mobile phone now, almost everybody at least. And number two, the UPI just made it very simple for anyone with a mobile phone access digital payments. We think crypto is going to drive the next step in financial inclusion in India. We think crypto and Web3 has the potential to create the next step change benefit for the Indian society, just like the UPI or mobile internet did back in the days. VCs actually already knows this, investors knows this. India is going through a fintech revolution, and investment in fintech has grown from 600 million back in 2016 to almost 7 billion last year. That's a tremendous amount of money coming in to power financial inclusion, innovation in financial inclusion in India. And we see there is no stopping. Today, India boasts many unicorn companies in fintech. And what's interesting is many of those companies are actually crypto or Web3 companies. And another interesting fact is that Coinbase has been involved in this innovation, in this process of innovation pretty early on. In fact, we have invested over $150 million in over 10 companies in India. And some of the names on the screen here are in Coinbase Ventures portfolio, names like Polygon, Biconomy, CoinDCX, CoinSwitch, and many more to come. And that's what makes it interesting today. I think crypto can power the next revolution in financial inclusion in India, and I think Coinbase can play an important role. So I'm going to talk about what we are announcing today, what we are launching today. The idea here is giving every Indian user with a mobile phone and internet connection the power to tap into the global economy, the global crypto economy, the power to access global financial products, and giving them exponentially more choices than my family and hundreds of millions of families ever had when I was growing up as a kid. Let me show you how we are going to do it. So very simply, you go to Google Play Store or Apple App Store and download our app. And you click on Get Started. Once you click on Get Started, we'll ask you to fill out some simple information about yourself, and set a strong password. By the way, you'll see this theme throughout. Brian also talked about it. Trust and security are the foundational pillar for everything we build at Coinbase. So you'll see that as we set up your account. So next, you'll have to verify through an email verification that you initiated that account setup. And then you'll set up your two-factor authentication. This process may be familiar to a lot of you in India today because it's very similar to what you do in many other apps. So we're going to send you a few quick messages, and you confirm, and that's it. You set up your two-factor authentication. Next, we are going to ask you to verify your identity, and this is really important to comply with Know Your Customer laws and anti-money laundering laws in the country. So we'll ask you to verify your identity, fill out a couple of simple forms again, and upload your government-issued ID, which is Aadhaar in case of India. Once you do that and confirm, you are verified. And that's it. Now you are ready, and you are on the home screen of Coinbase app. This is really the launch pad for your journey into the crypto economy. Now you can buy, sell, send, receive, stake, and do many more things with crypto. And I'm going to demonstrate today how you can buy some crypto in few simple steps. So first step in buying crypto is setting up your payment method. And we'll set up UPI so you can buy crypto instantly from your bank account with just a few taps. So you go to set up your payment method, you choose UPI, and we are going to ask you your UPI information. You confirm that. You add your UPI ID, and now you have connected your UPI ID with your Coinbase account. And we have saved that information, so next time you don't have to do that again. You can just instantly buy. And then you are back to the main homepage of Coinbase. And you'll see an invitation to get started. You click on that, and you can click on tap on buy. And you will see a choice of many assets that you can buy. Today, we're going to buy some Ethereum, and you can buy as little as 100 rupees of Ethereum. So you just put 100 rupees, you pay with UPI, you confirm the fees and et cetera, the order review page, and then you go and tap on that. And then on this step, you have to go to your UPI app and just quickly confirm, just like buying anything with UPI, and that's it. You have bought your first crypto. So as you saw, onboarding to Coinbase and buying your first crypto is super simple, very easy, and very, very fast. All right, so you come to your homepage, and you see you have bought crypto. So we have been actually experimenting with this for the last few weeks, and I'm thrilled to see the excitement the Indian users already have about this product. We have got a lot of good comments on Twitter, but we are not done yet. We are going to keep iterating and making the product better. It's just the beginning. So what's next? What's next is Web3. If you remember, the early web was the read-only web. AOL and Yahoo are examples. Today's web is read and write web, read-write interactive web. So large companies like Facebook and Google actually own and control a lot of the infrastructure of today's web. And it's monetized by advertising. India actually has leapfrogged Web 1 and directly went into Web 2. The next version of web will be Web 3. And it will be a decentralized web, which means it will be driven by decentralized blockchain infrastructure, where users actually own a stake in the infrastructure, and users are rewarded for participating and operating that infrastructure, and they are rewarded with crypto tokens. We think every service on the internet that exists today, community, gaming, media, and of course, financial services, is going to be disrupted and reimagined for Web3. And we think that means billions of users and trillions of market cap waiting to be unlocked in Web3. I have a dream that someone in a small town, just like the town I grew up in, is already working on a project that will become a $1 trillion market cap company in Web3 in India, and of course, the world. This is India's opportunity to lead globally. And we think we can help and that's why we are here. I already talked about Coinbase Ventures. We have invested in a number of Web3 companies and will continue to do so. And we are also building powerful tools and services like Coinbase Cloud, Coinbase Wallet, to help developers build a better version of the web, a more secure, a faster, and more decentralized version of the internet. I can't wait to see what we can accomplish together. So, chalo shuru kare? Or in my native tongue, my mother tongue, chalo shuru kari. I'm not done yet. One more thing. Please scan this QR code or use the promo code to start your journey into crypto and Web3. You can quickly download the app and punch the promo code in or just scan it. And you're going to get free money, 201 rupees in Bitcoin once you make your first trade on our app. And of course, if you want to work in the cutting-edge Web3 technology, we are hiring. We are hiring here in India. We are hiring all over across the world. And the interesting thing is we are a remote-first company. So you can be anywhere, in any corner of India. As long as you have a good internet connection, you can work on Web3. And you can work at Coinbase. So please check out coinbase.com/careers and see if there are any positions that interest you. And please reach out and join us. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. And welcome, and for the warm welcome back to India. I can't wait to see what we can build together in Web3. Thank you.
And now for a conversation about Coinbase and India, and how crypto and Web3 technology can help accelerate India's economic and financial inclusion goals. Please welcome back onto the stage, Brian Armstrong and Pankaj Gupta.
Hey, Brian, how are you doing?
That was great.
That namaste is a picture which will be flashed in everywhere.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that. Welcome again to India.
Thank you.
We are really thrilled to have you here. And okay, so I have so many questions to ask you, friends. This is a deck of 52 cards. Let me just dive right in. We'll start with early Coinbase years, your personal journey. So my first question would be great if you can tell us a little bit about Coinbase's origin and how you got into crypto.
Yeah, sure. So I studied computer science and economics in school, and I was a coder. I was doing some engineering jobs. I had a couple of formative experiences before Coinbase. One of them was that I had moved to Argentina for a year, and I lived there, and I got a chance to see what that economy and country had gone through with hyperinflation. And that, having only grown up in the United States, that was a formative experience to see something a little bit different. And I think the second thing was that I worked at Airbnb. So I got a job early at Airbnb. They were moving money to 190 countries all over the world. And I was an engineer there working on some of their payment systems and fraud systems. And I got a front row seat into what the global patchwork of different payment systems looks like all over the world. And it really is like every country almost having their own proprietary system. Usually it's a local oligopoly of players. And there hadn't been a lot of innovation and transparency and efficiency there.
Yeah.
So when I first saw the Bitcoin white paper in 2010, which I mentioned, something went off in my head, and I said, this seems pretty cool. I didn't really fully understand it. I didn't know if it would work. I thought about all the different ways it could fail. I went to go talk to some of my smartest friends, and they all told me, I don't get it. It sounds like a scam. I don't think this will work. And so I had a lot of self-doubt about it. I was going to these early Bitcoin meetups in San Francisco, California, and there was these mix of, computer science PhDs and anarchists and just crazy people. And so it was a very unique group of people that were interested in it early on. But what happened was on nights and weekends, I started coding up this prototype, and I thought, maybe if this protocol is out there now, kind of like, email has a protocol and the internet has a protocol with HTTP and TCP/IP, maybe somebody is going to need a simple way to access and use this protocol, kind of like you use Gmail instead of running your own email server or something like that. So I created that prototype. I applied to Y Combinator, which is a startup incubator in San Francisco, and they were the first people who wrote me this check for $150K, and they were the first people to really say, maybe you're not crazy. Maybe this is worth trying something. And that's what gave me the confidence to quit my job and start working on Coinbase. And from there, it was a wild, wild ride.
Well, thank you for doing that. That certainly is the reason why I am here in Coinbase today. So thank you for that. What were the early days of Coinbase, the startup, like?
Yeah, well, once the company had actually been founded and I had gotten, I was lucky enough to find Fred Ursum, who was ended up being the co-founder of Coinbase. And we were basically working 12-hour days. During the day, we would try to write code, work on the website, talk to customers. Nobody was using the product. We put out the product, and the first version of it, really nobody stuck around and used it. And so we were just coding, talking to customers during the day, and at night we would think about why it wasn't working. And so one day we just called up these customers and we said, well, you signed up for the app, you never came back. What was wrong? And they said, well, I like the app, but I don't really have any Bitcoin.
You talk to actual customers, like, and ask them, hey, what's going on?
Yeah, it was just us two in an apartment. So there was no, and we were just calling up people, and they said, one of them said, well, I would have used the app, but I don't have any Bitcoin. And I said, if we had put a buy button in the app, would you have bought Bitcoin and then had Bitcoin? And he said, yes, maybe. And so we went about trying to get that simple buy-sell experience working. And I'll gloss over all the details. There was lawyers and banks partners and lots of skepticism and legal opinion letters. But we eventually got it, we launched it, and from there we saw a spark of interest, and it started to grow organically. And so really it felt like for a year or two there, we were just toiling away, not having no idea if it would ever work. And suddenly we got the right thing fixed where it started to work. I would say those days were fun. But at the moment they didn't feel fun. There was like a lot of sleep deprivation, and there was hackers trying to break into our site, and lots of, we were desperately trying to hire as many good people and raise money. So I feel very lucky. There was probably a couple moments there early on where if the coin had flipped the other way, we wouldn't have been here today.
Do you recall an especially scary moment in this journey? I'm sure there were many, but does something still give you kind of like shivers?
Yeah, well, I remember early on there was one bank partner that we had, and we went, they were always a little bit nervous about crypto, and they started to see the numbers were getting, bigger and bigger every day. I remember one day they called us in, and the compliance officer there, and they were just like, we don't know what this is, we don't know what you're doing. This was back in 2013, 2014, and they said, we're going to close your bank account in 90 days or something like that. And we were, that could have been the end of the business. And so we went around and we met with all these different banks in the US. We finally got other bank partners online. We invested so much in our compliance program over the years. And now today it just feels like that was like 5-10 years ago. Now today we work with the biggest banks in the US and around the world. And so it just completely shifted. But we still encounter people every day where we go meet them for the first time, and they're skeptical, they don't understand it. And so I suspect that will be true 10 years from now too. There's only 200 million or so people in the world have actually tried crypto at this point. And when I think about how do we get it to be 2 billion people, or the majority of the world, if you look at how the internet adoption grew over the years, we're still in the very, very early innings of this change.
Thank you for sharing that. It's been quite a journey for yourself. It's amazing that when I think about you started the company in 2012, and what did you learn about yourself while building Coinbase all through these years?
Yeah, well, I guess one thing I learned about myself was that, I was always kind of an introvert. I was kind of shy. I didn't think of myself as being very good at communicating with people. I was good at writing code, and so I was kind of like the typical awkward engineer a little bit, especially as I was younger. And I never thought that I could be a CEO, actually. I thought CEOs were these people that were these I envisioned them like military generals, like giving orders to people and super charismatic, and I was like, that's not really me. But what I learned over time is that you can be any kind of CEO you want. And actually, there's a lot of very good CEOs who are technical nerd founders, if you will, running some of the largest companies in the world today. And so that, it sounds maybe silly. I don't know. At that time, I didn't think I could be a CEO, but I learned I can do it, and I can play to my strengths, and then surround myself with people on the team who are much better at the things that I'm not as good at.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
And I learned a little bit how to be an extrovert. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Let me move on from the early years to today.
Yeah.
About Coinbase, there's just so many fascinating things about Coinbase, but one of them that I find the most fascinating is that we are completely remote first.
Yeah.
And can you please share with the audience what that means, how you decided on this, and how's it going so far?
Yeah, well, of course, during COVID, we all had to start working remotely, at least in software. And what we realized is that this was not just a setback, it was a bit of an opportunity. So what we did is we decided to lean into this trend. And we said, Coinbase is going to be remote first. That means no one's required to come into the office and work, but if you want to, you can. But what that means is if you're going to come into the office, you have to continue to work as if you're in a remote environment. Everybody should sign in separately to video conference, for instance, and make sure that it's not a disadvantage for anybody working at home. Now, there's pros and there's cons to this, but I believe the pros outweigh the cons. The cons are that it can be harder for teams to feel a sense of belonging. It can be harder to get sparks of creativity in the downtime, the proverbial water cooler talk. So that sense of bonding is a little bit lost. And what we do to try to mitigate that is we try to get every team at Coinbase together in person once a quarter or so. We're not perfect because of COVID, but that's our aspiration. And so we mitigate it with these, basically we go do offsites in person. And the benefits of remote work are actually what I think outweighs the downside.
Yeah.
We're now able to hire great people all over the world. And even if you're in a relatively small city in India, again, with a good internet connection, you can now work at this company. So that basically the top of the funnel, the type of talent we've been able to get has been like 100x. Previously, think about how many people in the world lived within a 1-hour commute of one of our offices in the world. Less than 1% of the global population. So it easily 100x'd the top of the funnel, and everything in business, I think, comes back to, can you get great people to join the company? Because if you get great people, you can build good products, and then you can generate good profits and reinvest that into the next thing. So we're very committed to remote work, and it's been an amazing way for us to hire top talent around the world.
Yeah, a follow-up factoid, Mitch, maybe I can share about India. We have engineers from all over India. It's not just Delhi or Bangalore or Mumbai or the main cities, but just rolling off the top of my head, some of you might recognize these little smaller towns: Alwad, Banaswadi, Machlipuram. It's like we have lit up the map of India through our remote-first philosophy. It's amazing. Talking about crypto today now, moving on to just crypto and Web3 today, what is your mental model of how the narrative of crypto has evolved over the years?
Yeah, well, I think the narrative has evolved from normally, again, this goes back to almost 10 years ago in the US when we first started having these conversations, proactively reaching out to regulators and trying to be an educational resource, answering questions if we could. And the initial reaction a lot of people have, same thing with Wall Street and folks that we met there, was skepticism, and they viewed it as a risk, right? They thought about it, how do we mitigate the risk of this? And they saw only downside. The big shift that I've seen over the last 3 to 4 years is that most time when we meet with policymakers, regulators, bank partners now, they're starting to see it as an opportunity.
Yeah.
And yes, okay, maybe, there's actually really good data on this. About 1% of transactions in crypto are for illicit purposes if we look at the blockchain analytics data, because it's an open ledger. Just for comparison, the US dollar cash is about 4% illicit activity. So crypto is actually far safer than cash from a law enforcement, regulatory point of view. Coinbase has been a leader in terms of KYC, AML, and we've eventually shown them that, look, the 1% of folks that maybe want to try to use it for something bad, those risks can be mitigated. There's good blockchain analytics. We've worked with law enforcement all over the world. The real thing here is an opportunity. It's for the 99% of people who want to use this technology for something to empower their lives and to make it better. And that's the area that we really want to focus on. So we're now seeing countries and regions around the world compete to attract crypto companies and talent. Like, some smaller countries like Dubai and Singapore have really tried to create clear regulation to attract startups, but we're now even seeing the biggest countries in the world. The US is now, there was an executive order from President Biden sort of asking all of his departments to come back with clear regulation on crypto. We recognize we want to have it be a safe industry, a regulated industry, but we also want to make sure we don't disrupt the innovation in this industry that has the potential to grow the US economy and in economic freedom in the world. So we're seeing that in the US, in the UK, Australia, Japan has a license that we've been able to obtain. So this is the biggest shift that I've seen in the narrative in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and just to follow up to that, crypto has seen many waves of excitement. Is that unique to crypto, or it's just common, you think, for any such revolutionary technology?
I definitely think there's a hype cycle to crypto, and it is broader. It's all technology. So there's oftentimes this irrational exuberance when something is new. It gets a little crazy. People think it's the cure for everything, and then it comes back to reality, and then it grows slowly from there. Now, crypto has already been through a few of these. I think maybe 4 or 5 of these bubbles, even going back to 2010. And so what's interesting is that the bubbles keep getting less and less extreme. And even crypto, like Bitcoin, is now less volatile than some fiat currencies, right? And so the reason is that the use cases are now here. 5 years ago, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency was probably 95% speculation, 5% usage. But as I shared earlier, we track what percent of our active customers are doing trading and other activities, and now about 50% or a little bit more are doing something other than trading. So, NFTs and commerce and DeFi, borrowing and lending, all these things are showing real value and use cases, so it's becoming less and less speculative. And to your point, I don't think this is unique to crypto. The internet obviously went through a big dot-com boom and bust. And I love studying the history of these things, even if you go back and look at things like the bicycle, which today how could that have created a boom and bust cycle? But when these technologies first got introduced, there was rampant fear in various places around the world. People thought, oh, my children will never be at home, and they're wandering the city. And television scared people for years about, oh, the kids are glued to the TV. And So every technology, I think, creates opportunity, and there's some risk that needs to be mitigated. And people usually look at it with fear and skepticism, but over time, the value outweighs that, and the risks are able to be mitigated. And there's more good people in the world than bad people, and so we want to ensure that they also have the ability to use these technologies.
Let's move on to the future. We hear a lot about the metaverse.
Yeah.
And could you talk us through how you think about the metaverse? What does it mean?
Yeah, so metaverse is a hot topic now, and a lot of companies are investing in building it. You can go read Ready Player One, it's a great book, or I guess there's a movie now too, and I think a lot of that can paint a little bit of a clear picture of what the potential of this is. Now, metaverse, at least the way I define it, is that it's a persistent digital world where you can own the items in there. And so cryptocurrency and metaverse are really made for each other. I do think cryptocurrencies and digital goods like NFTs are going to be the economy of the metaverse. And I think as this technology keeps getting better and better, we are going to spend more and more of our lives in a digital world, so to speak. I mean, we're already doing that with smartphones. We're all kind of glued to the smartphones, and they help us communicate with people around the world, access the world's knowledge, remember things. It's almost like a brain augmentation device. And in the metaverse, people are going to have an even more rich experience. I think the temptation sometimes is people think, oh, this is going to be dystopian or something like that. Look, there could be negative aspects to the metaverse, but I think overall it would probably be positive, because think about somebody in a small village who doesn't have access to good educational resources. Well, in the metaverse, they could attend the same online classes as someone at Harvard, right? I think just in the sense that technology has been a great democratizing force, a great leveling of the playing field, I do think that the metaverse and cryptocurrency powering it is another one of those trends that's leveling the playing field for everybody.
It's probably just the evolution of the internet, right? Is that one way of thinking about it?
Yeah, I do think, the internet already has some persistent worlds. They're called games, like, massive multiplayer online games. So we're starting to see another variation of it, but it's going to be, I think gaming is just going to be one piece of it. There's going to be work being done there, commerce being done there, education being done there, creativity, art, even science is going to be done there. So it's much more than just gaming.
Moving on to India now. Thank you for coming out here, spending so much time and effort. You've been traveling in India for the last several days. What are your first impressions?
Right, well, this is my first time here, and I've really enjoyed my experience. I always love traveling places in the world. It gives you a sense of a totally new perspective, usually. And I really enjoyed my time. I spent some time in Jaipur and Rishikesh, and trying to get an understanding of the local culture and people. I've really appreciated getting to see the entrepreneurial energy here in India. I gave a talk at IIT Delhi, your alma mater, and the engineering talent and the entrepreneurial energy. This concept of Jugaad, I love. I tweeted about that. We have something a little bit like that, I guess, at Coinbase in the sense of early on, we always tried to figure out, let's find a way to get it done. You have to be creative in business, and the same thing is true here in the culture. I can kind of feel it. So I've really been enjoying my time.
So that's one local language word that you will carry back.
Yeah.
You talked about Coinbase's commitment and investment in India. Can you share your kind of high-level perspective on how you think about India in terms of that long-term investment?
Yeah, so I think it's going to be a long-term journey, right? We don't expect something to happen overnight here. I think there's going to be a lot of conversations and dialogue with regulators, policymakers, bank partners, payment providers. We've had great dialogues with other crypto companies here in India and made some investments, which I mentioned. And of course, the Indian people are the ones that we're seeing this spark of interest in cryptocurrency and a desire to really go explore this. So we want to be humble, we want to be respectful, we want to build a local team, create a lot of jobs here, but more importantly, help bring this technology and the benefit of it in a safe and trusted way, which is what we've done in every other country that we've entered, to this local market. And I hope that people see our intentions are good and that we come with humility and respect.
Thank you. There's a lot of builders and entrepreneurs here today. What advice would you give to Web3 entrepreneurs in India, or maybe actually anywhere in the world?
Yeah, well, first of all, there's a lot of Web3 entrepreneurs and crypto entrepreneurs now all around the world. We're seeing, when I speak to the top VC funds in Silicon Valley, they're seeing the majority of startups now have some kind of a crypto component to it. It's almost like, again, the early internet, everybody was making .com startups. Now you don't need to say .com because every startup uses the internet. Well, it's getting to be that you no longer have to say crypto startup because almost every startup is using crypto in some way, shape, or form. I guess the main thing I would tell people who are thinking about creating a company, which I think is a great way to try to improve the world, is if like I told you my story earlier, I was an engineer, I didn't know if I could be a CEO, but I just got started and I didn't really know what to do, but I did anything. Even if I didn't know what to do, I did something because action produces information, right? And by the way, Coinbase was not like the first company I started. I tried a tutoring company previously. I did probably 5 or 10 other startup ideas. You've never heard of those because they all failed. Yeah. And so if the first thing you do doesn't work, just keep trying more things. That's how you learn. And only by action will you produce information to know what to do next. If you just sit around and think about, well, what if this and what if that, you'll never get anywhere.
That's so inspirational, Brian. Thank you so much for coming out here, talking to us, being in India for so long. I'm just thrilled to have you here. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Up next, to share his unique insights on Web3, tuning in for Singapore, we are former Coinbase CTO and general partner of A16Z, angel investor, entrepreneur, and co-founder of Earn, Council, Teleport, and Coin Center. Ladies and gentlemen, Balaji Srinivasan.
My name is Balaji Srinivasan. I'm the former CTO of Coinbase. I'm friends with Brian and Surojit. I'm here to talk to you today about open problems in Web3. So these are essentially problems that are broad and across the entire ecosystem that haven't really gotten as discussed as some of the stuff you see in the headlines. You see DeFi and you see NFTs and you might see DEXs or zero knowledge. But I'm here to talk about things that I think of as like infrastructure related that I think are going to be important in the months and years to come. So one just quick note, I do have a new book coming out. If you're interested in the concepts in this slide deck, as well as a bunch of other things, you can pre-order it at thenetworkstate.com. That'll take you to an Amazon link. And it's about going from merely starting new companies and currencies to new cities and new countries. So the next level, assume Web3 completely works, completely wins. What do you do next, right? Okay. So open problems in Web3, what's important and valuable, but falling through the cracks, okay? Also think of it as open problems in Web3 infrastructure. So just to give an overview of how I would attack this if I were you, requests for startups, just as background, requests for startups are sort of like open problems in math. And today's talk is on a series of such unsexy problems where the funding is available if you solve them. An open problem in math, like the Millennium Prizes or what have you, they're basically things that folks who are expert in the field have said, look, this is an open problem. People don't know how to solve it. Maybe you can solve it. And so in the same spirit, one thing we did last year was a prize for a decentralized inflation dashboard. We did actually get a winner. They're going to be made public as part of a funding announcement. And, what I'd like to do is give more kind of specs like this. And just as I go through these, the proposed order, if you're just in the audience and thinking about working on some of these things, I wouldn't start by starting a company. Instead, I would do in the following order. Start by just writing a technical review, like a blog post on the area. And that itself is a stopping point. It's just go and post that. Maybe that's all you have the time to do. But just by putting it in writing, writing clearly is thinking clearly. Sometimes you don't really know what you know about something until you write about it, and then it kind of forces the concepts out of your head and you re-articulate them. So first thing, just, if you're interested in anything here, just try and write a blog post on it and maybe mention me and I might RT it. Then maybe, you set up a little GitHub demo and you start poking at that. Again, just do that open source. And maybe you can abandon it or not, but you can poke at it. Then if that works, deploy a microsite. I'm going to say that works like you enjoy it, the code works, okay? Deploy a microsite like, card.co, CARD.co, or a bunch of other, site builders like this. And then if that gets traction, then do a startup, maybe, right? And the reason I would just kind of propose this meta framework is this gives you stopping points and lets you test the waters as you're kind of company has to implement their own leaky bridge between their Postgres database and all the blockchains that are out there. And ideally what you want is something like PostGIS, which is an add-on to Postgres that adds new kinds of query support for like latitude and longitude queries. So you can do XY queries. I combine that with something like Rosetta, which we built at Coinbase, which allows support for multiple blockchains. And so essentially you put support for multiple blockchains into the database, just like PostGIS puts support for latitude and longitude queries into the database. And now people don't have to rewrite the support for all these blockchains over and over again, rather than having these like leaky bridges. It's just like basically built into a database add-on, call it PostChain. It's like PostGIS before Web3. And so this way, this would be very valuable because everybody in Web3 would use it. You'd have basic data structures like hashes or blocks or transactions and so on with well thought through abstractions that work for Bitcoin and Ethereum, but also potentially for other chains, just like PostGIS has these sort of well thought through abstractions that work for several different kinds of maps. And I think this could be pretty important. So call it PostChain, and you could maybe even fund this with the mechanism on the previous slide where you issue a token for it. Third concept, chain migration and interop. There's Thorchain, there's atomic swaps, there's a lot of work on this now. There's whole chains devoted to this like Zeta and so on. There's also the concept of kind of chain migration. So for example, Blockstack migrated to the Bitcoin blockchain a long time ago, and Binance moved BNB off of Ethereum into its own chain. And like systematizing this and developing best practices for going from, like literally a token represented in Postgres or in the ERC20 to your own chain. It's sort of a vague concept, but it seems like that should be a very important thing because it allows companies, individuals to get started with training wheels, maybe literally even debits and credits in a centralized database, or at some point they just freeze the balances and externalize them, maybe first as an ERC20 and then eventually as a full blockchain. And I think that's going to become a common thing. And so chain migration and interoperation, I think, will be big, basically helping people hoist their partially decentralized ledgers into a fully decentralized, or an open source and open state blockchain. Next concept, quantifying and optimizing decentralization. So right now, when people talk about a coin being, quote, sufficiently decentralized, that's a term of art that regulators use without actually defining it. And people just punch each other on Twitter all the time. My coin is more decentralized than yours, et cetera. And 5 years ago, I actually published a paper on this called Quantifying Decentralization, where I actually propose a relatively simple metric, even though there's some equations there. It's essentially saying, what is the choke point of the system? That is to say, what is the minimum number of entities that you need to compromise the system as a whole? If, for example, you had a blockchain that had 3 subsystems, and they were miners and developers and exchanges, and let's say you had to compromise 10 miners to compromise 51% of miners, but you only need to get 1 developer, because there are only 2 developers total, and so 1 developer would get you 50% developers, and there were 20 exchanges, so 11 exchanges would get you 51% of exchanges. Each of those are a different threshold of how many entities you need to compromise. Now you might say, okay, but 51% is the operative threshold for mining. You might have a different threshold. You might need to capture 100% of the developers to shut down, or 99% of the exchanges. So you can just plug those coefficients in and determine like what threshold counts as compromise for each subsystem. But with those as free parameters, this gives a framework for thinking about how compromisable a blockchain is. Let's say, how many entities do you have to compromise the system? And this actually was very informative for example, the design of Solana, which is the number 3 coin. Anatoly, Yakovenko has talked about this so-called Nakamoto coefficient and how it informed him. And so this, quantifying and optimizing, decentralization, right? We can then optimize it given scarce resources. Once we can quantify something and you can frame it as an optimization problem, then you can say, okay, if the decentralization bottleneck was exchanges, then we should allocate more money to our exchanges. But if instead of it was developers or miners, we could allocate more capital towards that, as opposed to increasing the capacity of the non-Slack portion of the system, right? Okay. So this moves from shouting slogans at each other to actually quantifying decentralization and tracking it mathematically and asking, does this make the system more or less decentralized in a rigorous way? Next concept, the coin table and the cap table. So I actually wrote a post on this at balajias.com called the mirror table. And essentially right now, many entities have a cap table plus 1 or more coin tables. The cap table is their table of who owns what equity, and securities contracts with the company, the options, and other things, warrants, stuff like that. And the coin table is basically the table of who owns what coins, and some assets, of course, are multi-asset. Like there's MakerDAO, and it has MKR, and it has DI, right? And so a question is, can we set up a combined web dashboard for this, so you don't have to go to Carta for some of it, and AngelList for some of it, and Coinbase for some of it, and your local wallet for some of it? Can we set up a combined dashboard? This is kind of like a wallet, but it's a wallet that thinks about equity as well. Very many different companies are adjacent to this and could solve this problem. Next concept, automated accounting, triple entry bookkeeping, streaming financials. So now many businesses are running in part on USDC, a stablecoin that we launched at Coinbase in 2018. And one of the reasons, so I supervised that launch, and one of the things that I was excited about is once you've got transactions on chain, well, you can put accounting on chain, because if every debit and credit is on chain, you can slurp all that up and you can generate cash flow, income statement, balance sheet. You can generate your quarterly filings. You can generate them potentially in real time. And that would save a lot of time. And so one of the things I'd love to see is toy examples of what fully automated accounting might look like. Streaming financials, so that just as you're trading back and forth with real money in USDC or some other stablecoin or other asset, you could use crypto assets as well, but a little bit easier with stablecoins. Everything gets updated live, and literally a sale comes in, and everything just ka-ching, it just accumulates like that, and the tables are live. That should be possible. It is technically possible. Right now, we have this very manual process where accountants typically, do not get, they have to run a bunch of manual processes and Excel files and so on to close the books at the end of the month or the quarter. But doing this in a fully automated way and potentially having the results on chain and auditable would mean not just that you get on-chain transactions, not just that you get on-chain financial statements, but if you have reliable and transparent financial statements, you also have a stock market. You also have the capability for investors to look at that stuff, and they can invest in companies. You have the ability for people in the middle of nowhere to show that they've got a real business with real cash flows because they can prove it on chain. So even if they're in the middle of India or Rio de Janeiro or off the map and they can't get a visa or something, they can prove they've got what it takes. They've built a real thing, and the financials are effectively audited, but they're on chain, right? So this could be a really big deal. Anybody who's done any accounting or supervised accountants understands why this is a big deal. And the big four accountancies actually also confirmed this, like Deloitte and others. All of them recognize that you're going from basically double entry bookkeeping to triple entry bookkeeping, where the blockchain is the third entry. It's not just the buyer and the seller, for example. The blockchain is also keeping a log of everything. And so it can be used as another reconciler, a public and global reconciler. This is very underrated. People talk about, blockchains, there's fraud in crypto. This is the opposite. This is actually high levels of trust and transparency and anti-fraud. Next concept, putting Sandhill on chain. I mean, this is, happening in some ways already in terms of investing. But what I mean by this is actually one thing we want are the forms of economic alignment that Sandhill Road and venture capital developed over many years. So that's, for example, when you do a financing in venture, you don't just allow the founders to sell all their cash or equity or something. Everybody is locked up in a certain way. There's so-called, ROFRs, like right of first refusal, and co-sale rights. If you're selling, I can sell, and so on and so forth, right? Basically, there's a liquidation waterfall that clarifies who can get what money when, a drag along provision that says if X, and Y both vote, then Z has to kind of come with them. Vesting terms, all this type of stuff. All these contract terms have been developed over the years because each one was kind of thought up to deal with a train crash of contracts that had happened often in the past. And the combination of them gives you a bunch of tools to economically align incentives and to build for the long term, as opposed to just totally liquid coins that you can, just go and dump on the market after it soars in price, right? And so putting these conventions of Sandhill on chain, I think will lead to an increased level of trust in the space, because somebody who has this level of transparency where they're showing and proving that their assets, their coins, and this new coin they're doing are locked up for 5 years and that they won't be able to sell unless they sell with the community. All that type of stuff gives confidence that the person is in it for the long haul. And it's very important in, like crypto where prices can change by the minute. So that's putting Sandhill on chain, getting more economic alignment. And ultimately what you can do, what I've got at the bottom is showing that Wyoming has recognized DAOs as legal. And eventually what you might be able to do is take these things, or really as a good first step, you take them and put them into smart contracts. The second step would be to say, look, these smart contracts are programmable versions of many of the constructs we know and love, like drag-alongs and lockups, investing in waterfalls. Maybe they become subroutines for the Wyoming DAO smart contract library, and you snap them together to kind of define your company's charter, as opposed to every lawyer sort of coding the charter from quasi-scratch in legalese. I say quasi-scratch because they use templates, but it's kind of messy still. Okay. Next concept, a pluggable dashboard of dashboards. So there are very many dashboards out there. Okay, all of these different coin dashboards. The reason is because the backends of blockchains are open, so anybody can make a dashboard to the Bitcoin blockchain or the Ethereum blockchain. By contrast, not everybody can make a dashboard to, so let's say, the PayPal database. Unlike the Bitcoin database, that's not open and public. You can't just download every record. So a useful thing to do would be to create a Yahoo-style index of all of them, indexed by coin, open sourceness, and other variables. Dune has actually been doing a pretty good job here. So, maybe that's just the answer. But there's more dashboards than even Dune has. But maybe something like that will become really big. I think it could, because I think dashboards are going to become very, very big in crypto. They already are, but just like as a concept. User-aligned metrics. So this is a really new thing. I mean, the thing is that the internet allowed measurement of individual page views. That was we take for granted today that that's possible, but when that first happened, it was completely novel. If you published a newspaper, you didn't know which articles people liked or were reading beyond perhaps a letter to the editor or something of that nature, and that was relatively few and far between. You didn't get that much reader feedback. Now you can get millions and millions of data points in real time over what specific articles are getting the most clicks. Of course, the problem is that you end up with things like, BuzzFeed. Don't worry about the coronavirus, worry about the flu, where we were talking about this early on. And they're just click optimizing as opposed to positive impact optimizing. And so how do you do positive impact? Well, what does Men's Health look like in the time of Fitbit? What does Bloomberg look like in the time of crypto portfolios? Ideally, what would happen is something like here where, this is your time over here, and here's the time that you view the content, and here's some metric of you as a user, and now suddenly your balance goes up and to the right, or your muscle mass goes up and to the right, because the content that you viewed over here actually improved your own user metrics, okay? For example, your muscle mass increased, or your weight decreased, or your crypto balance increased. And it's not necessarily like exactly one piece of content is a hammer blow like this, but perhaps accumulation, you start looking at, this new crypto Men's Health or whatever over here. And because it's benchmarking itself on a different set of metrics, like after people read the article, did they actually go and lift weights? And did they actually go and weigh in, right? Now it's actually benchmarking on the basis of results. Now, why do blockchains make that possible? Because they allow you to measure user metrics in a totally new way. It's the same kind of thing that, the same argument as the dashboard argument. The data is now open and public. The database is now open and public. So, you might need a good oracle for something like weight, or muscle mass. But for something like money, that's already going to be on chain. And so you could have a portfolio and you could see whether it's increasing as a function of, this content. Of course, correlations and causation, there's weird things people can do with wash trading and so on and so forth. There's ways of gaming this, but then there's ways of counter gaming it, just like, with clicks. I think there's something very fundamental here, though, which is ideally you'd have content that is meant to improve the user's stats, and you have just a totally different hill to climb as opposed to make the user as angry as possible with titillating headlines. You have a different optimization function. So let's call it user-aligned metrics. All right, a few more. So principal agent. The principal agent problem at the top, that's about the divergence between any two parties in an org chart. For example, a CEO hires a manager. That's a principal hiring the agent. Or a venture capitalist funds the CEO. The venture capitalist is now the principal and the CEO is the agent. In good times, the agent does exactly what the principal wants, and the principal pays the agent exactly what they want. In bad times, there's divergence where the principal doesn't pay the agent or the agent doesn't do the work. And every edge in an org chart can be thought of as another principal agent problem, because this is why big companies are hard to manage. It's like each edge there is like a hinge. Do those two people work well together? Is the principal agent problem resolved? Are they aligned enough? Okay. The fundamental thing you need for the principal agent problem is you need both parties to feel that the win-win is better for both than the win-lose or lose-win. The principal can't gain status at the expense of the agent or vice versa. Okay. And once you start thinking about management like this, you're like, okay, how do I, articulate, enunciate, and try to ensure a win-win relationship with those people who I have these hinged relationships with? Now, there's different ways of solving, the principal agent problem. One of them is just to have a small company where there aren't that many, relationships to manage. Another is something like equity, where everybody knows that defecting and going to a lose-win strategy actually makes them less money than win-win. A third is automation, like robotics. No man, no problem. If you have no people there, if it's a smart contract, then you don't have a principal agent problem in the same sense. You might script the code, but it's not got a mind of its own where it's trying to benefit itself. The code has no self-interest. It will do what you tell it to do, regardless if that's what you actually wanted it to do on some higher level. It will do exactly what you tell it to do. An agent, however, has a mind of its own. It may not. And related to this is basically what powers you're giving the agent to accomplish that. And you can think of that as a so-called access control list. Are you giving your direct report the ability to hire, the ability to fire, the ability to do this, the ability to do that, right? And often it's risk budget or firing ability that's actually more scarce than hiring ability. And so the TLDR is that this whole thing is very important for DAOs. They don't have to be all as obvious as, it's a rug pull where the guy took org charts and so on, alignment for DAOs. So pure CPA for Web3 commerce. So, Google and Facebook actually with their ads, they do what's called CPM and CPC. Like, they charge the merchant, for every 1,000 views of the ad or every 1,000 clicks of the ad. But really what the merchant cares about is not whether somebody views or clicks the ad. They care about whether somebody buys a product. And, Casper mattresses, for example, they'll sell some, $500 mattress. And they'd be happy, let's say, to pay $25 for every single mattress they sell. What they don't want to do is pay $2,000 in clicks and not sell a single mattress. Then they're paying CPC rather than so-called CPA rates. They're paying on the basis of click, as opposed to what they really care about, which is the action, the user actually buying the product. Now, pure CPA has been not really embraced by Google and Facebook and others for various reasons, but one of them that I think is underappreciated is the accounting is actually non-trivial if you're basically trying to get the customer to buy from the merchant in such a way that a Google or a Facebook could verify that. So you actually have like 4 parties here. There's a customer, there's a merchant, there's Google, and then there's nowadays the blockchain. And with the blockchain, there's actually this neutral third, or in this case, fourth party, which Google and the merchant and the customer all understand. I mean, in 5 years or thereabouts, or 10 years, all understand and can read from and write to. And so this basically gives a new way of thinking about, how do I track conversions and attribution and referrals and affiliates? I can track that on chain. And of course, you can kind of encrypt this with zero knowledge or use viewing keys such that only a subset of people can view them rather than making it completely public. But there's something pretty powerful here, I think, and incentivize the merchants to move to crypto. A few more. So a blockchain L2 performance shootout. So basically, rather than people arguing over Twitter about what chains are important, do something like the computer language benchmark game, which programming languages are fastest. You take implementations in different languages and run them, but do that for all the coins. Okay, so all these claims of performance or what have you, just benchmark them, have the whole thing be open source on GitHub so that what will happen is anybody who's ranked low, they will be like, oh my God, I can't believe you offended the honor of so-and-so coin. And what you do is you then let them correct it by submitting a pull request with a better version, right? A few more. So decentralized login, Web 2 is login with Twitter, Google, et cetera. Web 3 is going to be moving from passwords and social login to private keys. And that's MetaMask and ENS and Handshake and Urbit and other kinds of things. So the question is, can we go from this old school login widget to a simple new cross-service decentralized widget? There may be a few different identity providers, but I think this is going to be pretty important. Enumerating the nouns and the verbs. So in 2018, I gave an internal talk at Coinbase on the nouns like holders, miners, and devs, and the verbs, buy, sell, send, receive of the crypto economy. Can we enumerate all these nouns and verbs and how they connect? That's pretty important. A Web3 status dashboard. Okay, so this is as simple as it sounds, but for each coin, is it a pre-launch, testnet, post-launch coin? Do we need to pick up our coins? Do we need to migrate them? Do we need to do something? The larger your portfolio, the harder it is to find this information clean in one place without ads. And people will definitely pay subscription and so on for that. May sound like, okay, it's not really a big market, but CoinMarketCap didn't seem like a big market when it came out, and it's like one of the most refreshed sites of the world. It's insanely popular. Some of these dashboards become very, very, very popular. People refresh them multiple times a day. So this would be something where all the major token buyers would use your site because they're folks who have, more than just 1 or 5 tokens. Even there's a bunch who have a lot. And they don't want to miss a date for a fork or something like that, which highly engaged community members would hear about, but they might not. Okay, so that's it's a slew of concepts. These are the kinds of things I think of as open problems in Web3 infra. If you build any of these, please email finance@gs and we may fund them. Okay, thank you very much.
That was Balaji Srinivasan via video feed from Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, for the final session of the afternoon, we're delighted to be hosting a discussion on all things crypto. Please welcome on stage our special guest and host, co-founder of Superteam, Tanmay Bhatt. Tanmay will be joined by Executive Vice President of Engineering Coinbase, Manish Gupta, Vice President, Head of Corporate Development and Coinbase Ventures, Shan Agarwal, co-founder of EPNS, Richard Joshi, and Content and Protocol Research Lead for Questbook, Yana Lakshmi. Please give them a warm round of applause.
Hello. Guys, I think we can do better than that. Web 2 is judging us. Come on. Thank you. Hi, Manish. Hi, Shan. Hi, Richa. Hi, Gyan.
Hello.
How are you guys doing this morning? You guys doing good?
Yes.
I know it was a long wait backstage, but thankfully we all got selfies with Brian, so that kind of worked out well. It's great to be here. Feels really good. Chalo shuru kare.
Yes.
Yes. Hello.
All right. So first, let's start off with guys. I would love to know what was your like aha moment with crypto. Like when did you discover it? What's your personal story of when you discovered crypto? And reveal your whole portfolio as well with that. Manish, I'd like to start with you.
I'm happy to start. So first of all, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you, everyone, for this amazing welcome. So in terms of crypto, let me give you some backstory. So I first heard about crypto in like 2010, 2011, right, when it was just coming on, and it was.
Are you Satoshi?
I'm not Satoshi. I'm not Satoshi. However, I had the misfortune of completely ignoring it for the last 10 years.
Good move.
I know. And then when COVID hit really hard, I was working at a transportation company called Lyft, and it came to a full stop, and that's when I learned about crypto. And that just blew my mind. Like,
Who told you about crypto? Like you learned it in 2012, but then you started like dabbling around with it now.
yeah, so basically Surojit and I have worked together at Google for many years, and
okay.
he had joined Coinbase recently.
Got
so
it.
he pinged me, Manish, come, let's hear about this. Let's do this together.
Got it. Awesome. I wish there was like a lifetime referral thing in crypto. Like if you introduce someone to crypto, you get 1% every time they make some money. But that's just me. Shan,
Yeah.
when did you discover crypto?
Yeah, so I actually first heard about crypto, Bitcoin, in 2013 from some friends. They were making some online purchases using this mysterious thing called Bitcoin. I didn't think too much of it then. And then in 2017, I was working as an investor at a venture capital fund, and I was focused on fintech and largely talking to a lot of neobanks and P2P payments companies. And a friend told me, hey, you should check out this thing called Ethereum. So I read about Ethereum, and as soon as I started talking to a lot of developers that were talking about building projects on Ethereum, it just sort of clicked for me that this is something more than just a currency, which is what I had always thought about it as. It was more of an app platform. And so that got me really excited, and the wheels just started turning from there.
Awesome. Richa, Gyan?
For me, I think around 2015, my co-founder at the time, he had ordered some Bitcoin from one of the Indian exchanges. So back in the days, they actually, when you buy Bitcoin, they actually sent a souvenir Bitcoin, like a coin, gold coin, to your mailing address. And that I was like, wow, what is this shiny thing? And then fast forward 2017, I was working with Deloitte. I was looking to explore, new things. And at the same time, my co-founder was also trying to trade, learning a new language called Solidity, trying his hands on that. So I heard about it there. And then we started working for a fintech startup, started exploring, Web3, crypto in the weekends, doing some hacks, seeing the pain points of what we could do. And that's when we also stumbled upon the idea of what we are building now, that is EPNS. We wrote to Ethereum Foundation. They really liked the idea. They said there's nothing like it, which is the missing piece, and the communication layer in Web3, that's what we are building. And since then, we've had like an amazing journey. We built our POC at ETH Global 2020. Then we raised our seed round by the likes of Balaji, Binance Live, you guys. So yeah, it's been a really awesome journey so far.
You know, exchanges today don't bother with the souvenir. They're just like, we'll just give you 200 rupees worth of Bitcoin. Gyan, what was your aha moment?
Yeah, so au contraire to all the others who discovered blockchain through cryptocurrency, it was completely the other way around for me. I discovered cryptocurrencies through blockchain. In 2016, I went to a conference and I attended a talk by Dr. Pandurang Kamat, who explained about the introduction to blockchain. And looking at that, like my geeky self kind of went all like, ooh, cryptography could do this. Like I didn't know, and I couldn't think of this. And that was definitely an aha moment. Of course, after that, I stalked the professor for a while and attended all the conferences where he went and gave talks in. But yeah, that was my introduction. My introduction itself was through the technology stream. And fortunately, I'm just like continuing that space.
Wow, you're actually here for the tech. That's crazy. You're a minority.
Yes.
Awesome. You know, things have changed dramatically, of course, especially in the last couple of years, ever since the pandemic happened. You know, people at home, they're like, where do I invest? And then all of a sudden, boom. And all this spotlight has its advantages and its disadvantages, right? So I want to know from you guys, with respect to what each of you do, what's been good about the mainstreamization of crypto and what's been bad about it?
I can go first. So I think if you zoom back out and think about any technology, it starts off being something like people think of it like a joke and ignore it, right? And then it becomes like a thing of threat, like people start to fear it until it becomes obvious. So I think crypto is going through this journey, and it is going through this phase where people are sometimes just not clear about what it is all about, and there is this lots of fear around it. And hence, what you see is that there is lots of advertising, and because of that, people are like, oh, stop. So I think it is a necessary journey for crypto to go through, and I think it has advantages. I think it's great that it is going through this journey very, very fast. There are some risks, though. So the risks would be things like, if there is regulation, and the regulation is bad regulation, and that comes from a place of fear, then that can really stifle the innovation. So I think the way to solve this is basically working with the regulators proactively, making sure that there is good understanding about crypto, what its advantages are, and it does not go down the path of 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, right? And also education. There's lots of education to be done in this, just of people, of regulators and everybody, so that we can mitigate the disadvantages, as you call them.
Yeah. Shan?
Yeah, I would just build on the education point. I think the biggest advantage to me is that there is mainstream interest, right? I think there's a lot of misperceptions and a lot of myths out there about crypto. And if people don't have the resources to or aren't motivated to actually learn about it, then those myths and those misperceptions perpetuate themselves. And so in the last 18 months, for the first time, it used to be me sort of going and telling my friends what crypto was, but now everybody wants to ask me about this cool dApp or what an NFT is. And that's just a mindset shift, I think. And so that should help accelerate education and bridge that gap sooner. The second is talent. I think, for me in particularly, this is something that I see all the time, is just the quality of new entrepreneurs and new people that are joining crypto and Web3, and they're starting to actually build, they tinker, they innovate. That's how we make progress. And so in each of these cycles, that's always one of the things that I think is one of the biggest advantages. The disadvantage that I would point to is more just noise and distraction. People come into crypto and Web3, especially during these peak cycles, for different reasons. There's some that come in from a place of genuine interest, and then there's others that come in for the wrong reasons. And so it's really easy sometimes, I think, just to get lost in the noise. So that's probably the biggest disadvantage.
Yeah, I mean, completely agree 100%, building out what Manish and Shan said. I think the biggest advantage would have been right now, we are seeing a lot of adoption in mainstream. I was just at a wedding maybe 2 weeks back, and my friend's uncle who's in his 70s, he wanted to know about his portfolio. He wanted to talk about NFTs, and we end up talking till 12 at night, about his portfolio, where to invest, and so on. So I think we are having those conversations, which is great. We never had those conversations in Indian households before. So I think that's been great. But I think on the flip side, there are a lot of people who are getting in the space for maybe not the right reasons, maybe just they might end up losing a lot of money. From a founder's perspective, for us, I think there is a lot more pressure than just building. So there's a lot of stuff that you do, attend conferences, market, and so on. So I think it's a distraction as well, like Sean mentioned, but I think you just need to strike that balance.
I spoke to my mom about NFTs, and that to me is a disadvantage because she just like, ye board hai, to kya ho gaya? She just doesn't get it. Kyan, you?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit from the builder's perspective. So I think crypto going mainstream, or rather the technology itself going mainstream, helps get new builders into the ecosystem. So far, people were skeptical whether it is worth investing my time learning about this new technology. But now that it is going mainstream, I think it gives them that confidence that, yes, I want to move from what I'm doing into something new because people have slowly started accepting it. One of the examples is definitely I and my sister. We both work in the crypto space. And my parents are always, speculating. They are like, okay, if you're earning in crypto, immediately convert into INR, immediately, make it fiat kind of thing. But just recently, my mom also just asked us, in our mother tongue, eppadi vaangardu in the crypto, eppadi vaangar the Bitcoin. That means, how do I buy this, right? Mm-hmm. So they are now slowly accepting, and they are like, okay, you have the autonomy to do whatever you want, so that's great. But I feel from a disadvantage perspective as well, there is a lot of, anything that becomes viral, right? It's very difficult to determine what is the veracity of the information that's going around, right? So people are not sure whether, even the regulations, right? People are not sure, even now, people are not sure whether they have to pay 30% tax on what. Do they have to pay on profits? Do they have to pay on just buying crypto? Or to what extent is this news real? And, noise, as everybody mentioned. That's definitely a big advantage, and making everybody take a step back and evaluate how this space is going to go forward. But definitely more advantages than disadvantages that I can state of.
Awesome.
I can add one more advantage. Yeah. Like anytime you are in a friend circle and you are the crypto guy now, so everybody wants to come and talk to you, right?
Yeah, that's a big advantage.
Yeah, but if the question is which dog should I buy, that's a disadvantage. Manish, I'd love some alpha here, right? What are you doing special for India, product-wise maybe?
Yeah.
And is the India team gonna be very independent? How is it gonna work with the global team? Brian is backstage. Just want to give you that info before you answer that question.
Okay, so zooming back out again, if you just look back 1 year ago, the whole point of even starting a site in India was a dream. It was an idea. We hadn't even hired Pankaj, for example, right? And looking from there to now, we already have more than 300 employees at Coinbase India. More than half of them are in tech. And we are going to be more than 1,000 by the end of this year. So there is lots of hiring happening. And the hiring is cross-functional. It's not just engineering, right? It's engineering, product management, design, CX, a bunch of other functions. So the whole idea is to create fairly autonomous teams in these very disparate time zones so that we can continue to have very efficient execution across time zones, right? And not take too much of a tax. Also, the key point, which you all know very well, is that India has a very, very high talent density. And especially, this is an opportunity with Web3 and crypto, where things are really transforming. India can actually help accelerate, not just for India, but for the rest of the world. So, evolving the entire ecosystem is something that India can play a big part in.
No pressure.
Say that again?
No pressure.
No pressure, no pressure. And we want to collectively make that happen, of course.
Speaking of talent, Gyan, you've been working with a lot of developers, introducing them to crypto. I want to ask you, what's changed from 2018 talent-wise to today? What is the ecosystem like?
So to give a bit of context, let me talk a little bit about what I am doing right now. So I work with Questbook. Of course, I was hired to work on the content and the protocol research side. But now we are building a grants orchestration tool, so I'm handling the Solana integration from a product perspective. I and a couple of other women who are present in the room have also started a community called the Phoenix Guild, where we are very particular about getting more diversity in the crypto space. So we are helping educate women, getting them into Web3 and trying to, break them into Web3 and make careers. Apart from that, I also work on a lot of grant projects, which are tech projects, my passion projects. And I'm also advisory in a lot of startups, one particular startup called Naksh, which is trying to bring Indian rural artists and artisans on the global map. Having said that, this is what I'm doing right now. But 5 years ago, when I started in crypto, I was struggling to get a room full of people who were 10 or 20 in number and trying to explain the idea of blockchain and why this is the next big tech, right? So you can see the kind of change, like even I was just, trying to spread the word. But the kind of change that has happened over the past 4-5 years, earlier people only knew about Bitcoin and just knew about cryptocurrencies. The only popular questions were, what are the cryptocurrencies that we should buy, which is going to give us a profit in the long term? Not really about how this works. Nobody bothered. But now people are talking about things like scalability. People are talking about things like, is this product truly decentralized? People are talking about the network stack when we meet each other. What is decentralized storage? What is decentralized network? What does IPFS do? What are these layer 2s and what is their significance, right? So there is a huge interest from just investing / trading / making money to wanting to build not just for a profit, but also wanting to build for impact. This is a huge change that I can say that I have seen in the past couple of years, and I'm really excited to see what people are going to build in India, in the upcoming years. It's going to be mind-blowing for sure.
Yeah, I would just add one thing, which is I think the ecosystem's just gotten a lot more diverse in general. 4 years ago, it was mostly crypto was bucketed as fintech, and I think it's expanded from there. So you see a lot of artists and creators who come at it from that angle. You see a lot of game developers that now see the potential benefits of building on crypto rails, and that just didn't exist 4 years ago, but that's where a lot of the growth is coming from now.
Shan, what are some of your favorite Indian protocols or Web3 startups?
I don't like to play favorites here, but of the ones that have not moved to Dubai, one of my favorites is probably a relative OG within the Indian ecosystem. It's a company called Instadapp, which I think you know very well.
Yeah, I'm an angel investor in it. Thank you for buying my bags.
Yeah,
Appreciate
absolutely.
it.
It's a protocol and interface, powerful interface for DeFi degens and just everyday crypto users just to more seamlessly interact with DeFi.
Samyak and Soumya, they were on the Forbes 30 under 30 list this time. Did you know that?
Sorry, say one
They
more.
were on the Forbes 30 under 30 list this time.
Oh.
The founders, of Instagram. Yeah.
Amazing.
They made it in half the time.
Probably wasn't on the investor update, but just want to let you know. Oh, awesome. Richa, Shan just mentioned about entrepreneurs moving to Dubai. I know that EPNS has a base in Dubai as well now. Are you seeing a lot of Indian founders move there? Is it because of regulatory uncertainty? What's the feeling that you have?
Yeah, sure. So I think just like as founders, startup founders, or crypto founders, I think the main thing that we all are passionate about is about building, about innovating, about kind of pursuing the dream that we have to build innovation and build great products. And I think with the regulatory uncertainty, it does add that variable of uncertainty in the equation. So what typically happens is that people want to do like 100 things in a day, and then you add the overheads of, say, a lawyer, the costs, and all of these involved. They just want to make sure that they have a safe space where they can build out. So you see a lot of people probably having other bases in more crypto-friendly countries, for example, Dubai. But I think it's not to do with not being patriotic or anything. I think we all feel very strongly about our roots and what we want to do for the ecosystem. I think it's more about sort of having a baby, like a startup is like a baby, and you want to do everything to protect it, kind of nurture it, give it a good environment. And I think that's what most of them feel, that it would make so much more sense if they can focus the bandwidth, the energy, building a robust startup, innovating in the space. And I think that's probably one of the reasons I see a lot of people kind of taking that step.
Awesome. Shan, you guys have teamed up with Builders Tribe, who are here today. I believe I saw Pareen somewhere here. You're going to be entertaining some pitches. Are you excited about any particular trends? Anything specific that you want to see in India? Is there anything that you're excited about?
Yeah, so we partnered with Bidler's Tribe, and actually tomorrow, so we have invited 7 local startup companies to come pitch for the chance to win up to $1 million. So super excited to continue to further double down on our commitment to investing in India. In terms of like broader trends that we're excited about, I think I'd point to 2 just now. The first is the financialization of NFTs. So I think NFTs sort of had a coming out moment, if you will, in 2021. But it really just started to scratch the surface, where a lot of it were static images and profile pictures. But one of the beauties of crypto is that they are these open and interoperable protocols. And so I'm really excited about the potential to have NFTs and non-financial crypto assets that are built on crypto rails, but integrated with financial crypto protocols, because that can unlock new markets. The second is just more robust Web3 infrastructure as a whole. I think we've seen, like I mentioned earlier, a tremendous number of very strong Web2 developers that come into the ecosystem. And I think when they start to peel back the onion on what the tools are that are available to them, there's a lot that's lacking. And so, I talked about gaming a little bit earlier, but it brings up new problems where, gaming can appeal to billions of
My co-founder and me, he was very highly technical. I was more on the marketing and the growth side. So pretty much, a community building was, we just started off. And we started on a very weird note. I think we kind of thought, like, we actually Googled how to build communities, and there were a bunch of blogs and articles that we read. And it did say that, community building is probably your first step and your first impression that, people will have of your project. And we took it really seriously. We've created content with a lot of projections, I would say, about like how the project is, about how we are. And when we posted that online, I think the response we got from a lot of amazing Web3 founders, folks who have built Ethereum, was very amusing, sometimes also very goofy. So you realize that community building is not very serious. You should not take it very seriously. Working with a lot of strong community Web3 builders, like Simona from Gitcoin, she reinforced the fact that as a project, as building a community, you need to instill your own personality in what you're building, in the community that you're building, and that will show through. I think what I've realized over the course of time is that building community is a very long process. It's not like you post one viral thing and then the community is there. But I think it's a process wherein the community itself stands for the values and the vision of the project. It is talking to your early supporters who've been supporting you through, through thins and thick. And I think for us, what worked is talking to our users, talking to early users, validating our ideas, talking about tech, what features we are building out, and just having fun. So at the end of the day, I think building a strong Web3 community is all about having a community that is self-operating, it's self-nurturing, and it's a fun place to be. So, yeah.
And not just rocket emoji, when moon.
Yeah.
No, just to resonate with what Richa said, and I have known Richa since for a while. We did the kernel fellowship together. I think that's when EPNS was just like kickstarting. They were still figuring out various things. I believe that their community is something that has grown very organically, and I think this is whenever we talk to founders, whenever we talk to folks who are thinking of building a project, community is the longer game for your project to sustain. You have to, and community is not just like putting things on Twitter or like sending newsletters. It's actually talking to people. Talking to people, sharing your idea, and then trying to resonate if they are able to, get into the same mindset. Do they align with the values of the product that you're building? And I see that these two guys have done such a great job.
And when none of that works, airdrop time. Coinbase is like one of possibly the largest crypto brand in the world, right? And having Coinbase's presence in India naturally can be quite galvanizing to the community. But is there anything specific, Gyan and Risha, that you think? I mean, we have Manisha, we have his ears right now.
We have Shan also.
We have Shan also. Is there anything specific that you think that they can do to galvanize the ecosystem further? Do you have any ideas? Have you thought about this before?
Yeah, for sure. And I've been discussing with a couple of folks from my team as well. We have been brainstorming for a while, especially after we started attending some IRL conferences and figured out that from an ecosystem perspective, we are one of the strongest communities, just as a country, right? We are a community in itself. And everybody, all the protocols that have started out or have been in the game for a while, especially all the new layer ones, the layer twos that are coming up, and all the add-on infrastructure projects want to build a community in India. Now, some of the things that we have been brainstorming around is it just ecosystem expansion to gain users? Or can we do one step better and build a community of developers, builders, who can go ahead and build products or make their projects, go to a unicorn level in India? And I think that is something if Coinbase can definitely support, being a huge international brand and already being in the crypto space for a while. I think the name and the kind of support that the execs can provide, the experience that they've had dealing with users, so many things can add on to building this huge ecosystem in India, which will churn out like multiple developers, tech co-founders, as I was discussing with Shan yesterday, like technical co-founders just coming with like huge unicorn projects, products, right? We can build games, we can build infrastructure products, dev tooling, huge gap in dev tooling, building things using existing L2s and optimizing for users, optimizing for scalability, optimizing for things like mass adoption. There's just so much scope to build in India. And I think this is something where Coinbase can definitely support and lend a hand. And I'm sure we can build like a robust, amazing, product.
We need more
house.
unicorns, Shan.
Yes.
And so
Just value them higher from day one, all right?
and just 100% to what Gyan is saying, and just to build up on what she's saying, I think Coinbase is such a global player in this ecosystem that I think projects can do so much with the help and support that we can get from Coinbase, just introducing to their communities, introducing to projects that they work with. I think will be a really big value add. Just from a startup perspective, I think funding, aligning incentives is a great way also to support ecosystem projects and projects that are building right now. From an EPNS perspective, I think what we are building are decentralized notifications, and that would be great to have integrated with Coinbase wallets. And maybe my last ask would be when push on Coinbase.
Yeah, we will get to that before we end, though. Shan, on the venture side, right? Like Coinbase Ventures is invested in CoinDCX and CoinSwitch as well. You'll be competing with both the exchanges. How is that going to play out? Have you thought about it? Are we going to see a merger? Like, is there any thoughts? Can you give us any alpha?
I've never thought about it. No.
That was the alpha.
Not even an hour before when I asked this question to you.
So first and foremost, we're ecosystem investors at Coinbase, right? And so we invest in emerging ecosystems in India, in certain areas within crypto. And so the primary mandate is to invest in the best entrepreneurs and projects that are moving the crypto ecosystem forward. And I think fundamentally, our view has always been that it's a rising tide. And so if we're investing in projects that are growing crypto overall, then that's going to benefit Coinbase and it's going to benefit others, and that's great. And specific to other exchanges or brokerages, we've always taken a very collaborative view and approach. And so I think it's easy to look from the outside and say, oh, you're competing just directly. But if you actually look a layer deeper, we compete in some ways, maybe for the trading use case, but we also partner for others. We may provide custody services to those players. We may provide staking as a service to those players. And so we're pretty confident that we'd rather find ways to partner and just grow the market overall.
Manish, Coinbase has always been, worked really well with regulators in the US, especially. What are some of the learnings that you're going to be bringing to India from that?
Yeah, so the core tenets of our product tend to be about making our product super simple to use and the most trusted, right? And Brian and Surojit both touched upon this particular topic, that we want to work with the regulators proactively and make sure that there is this sense of understanding of what this is all about, on how we can make sure that people can trust the products that we build, right? So I think that's the answer. Basically, just work with the regulators and ensure that there is understanding and broad adoption of crypto.
Yeah, I think all your educational, endeavors might also go a long way.
I think actually one thing I'll say is that the easiest way and the most important and effective way for people to learn about crypto is actually to just experience it. And experience it in a way that is safe and very easy to use. And that is one of the reasons why we are launching what we are launching today. It's a rollout of a product that people can very easily experience, at least the beginnings of crypto, right? And I know it's a very big space, it's a very complex space, but what we are building is something that can provide a reasonable way for people to experience at least the beginnings.
Yeah, and I think given that we're a talent base, I think a lot of talent will also might earn in crypto in a global asset that they haven't experienced before. We're seeing a lot of talent from Web 2 slowly migrate to Web 3. We saw Ryan from YouTube Gaming recently join Polygon Studios. That was massive news. I want to ask Manish and Gyan, are you guys seeing the migration? And if you are, what's that talent like? What are the questions that they usually have? What is that migration like?
Yeah, so from my experience, I've been seeing a lot of Web 2 folks get into Web 3 by doing some side projects or freelance projects, or even very junior folks like those who are in their third year, final year of college, or just graduated folks wanting to explore in Web 3. So this is definitely, there is a slow talent migration, but I don't consider this as a migration. See, this is good for those who are very new, who have a lot of time in their hands. But if you see experienced Web 2 devs who have 6 years of experience, 10 years of experience, they have families, they have people to go back to home. They can't keep building and shipping for 24 hours, right? And the company culture that they get into is like this. It's build it, ship it. I know nobody's saying it, or probably nobody wants to talk about
The
it.
smile on Manish's face right now.
But this is the reality, right? I know a bunch of experienced folks who are working with me on grant projects, like small grant projects, right? $50,000, $60,000. But they have the potential to go full on Web3 because they are such amazing full stack devs. But they just don't want to. They feel like the pressure is too much. So I think because we are still nascent and there is so much pressure to build and ship, companies need to consciously come up with a culture that is, that is conducive to like, okay, you can take a break, you can build and ship, but you don't have to do everything and like, you don't have to work for 24 hours every day, right? Because that's genuine. There's a burnout culture, right? Even if experienced devs come into a Web3 project, and this has happened to quite a few of my friends who are literally forced to go into Web3, but they're amazing devs, and I want them to experience this ecosystem. I want them to experience the innovation. But they get burnt out, right? They burnt out 3 months, 6 months, and then they went back to their Web 2 jobs. They were like, I'm going to contribute in the form of projects. So I think there's a big culture mindset that has to come for this migration to actually happen, right? So when the culture starts becoming better and better down the line, an year, 2 years, we are going to see a huge influx of these really good Web 2 full stack devs wanting to explore the innovation in Web 3. And until then, I feel like it's going to be more of a push from the community, from the ecosystem that, hey, this is good, why don't you do it? Kind of, slow migration. But yeah, I feel like culture is one of the barriers that's going to set back this migration that is likely.
I'll say this is a beginning of an evolution, actually. Like everybody who is currently in Web 2, they'll have to think about how they upskill themselves to be more into Web 3. Like my prediction is that every company that is pure Web 2 today, they will likely have to reinvent themselves or they will get disrupted. And you see this from companies like Google starting their own little blockchain unit. You have Facebook going all in on metaverse and things like that. So the expectation is that engineers and all employees in all those companies will have to become more and more Web3 aware and Web3 enthusiast and Web3 skilled eventually.
Yeah, I asked an engineer friend of mine who moved to Web3. I said, "What made you move?" He's like, "Look, 3 greater than 2." Shan, we have many Web3 founders here today, and I think I'd be doing them a disservice if I didn't ask you how to get their tokens listed on Coinbase.
I think that one's for Manish, right? I mean, that's the billion-dollar question, I guess. No, so quite literally and truthfully, the listing process at Coinbase is managed by a completely firewall team. We have a dedicated team. It's called the Digital Asset Listing Group, or DALG.
So they shouldn't WhatsApp you?
They should not WhatsApp.
Okay.
You can go to Coinbase Asset Hub, but they review every project for its level of decentralization, the security of the asset or the protocol, a form of our Howey test, and they use that to make the determination. So I know it's not the best answer for a lot of you Web3 founders, but the actual answer is just to build a great product and a community and go through the application process.
So Tanmay Coin has a small chance, you're saying? Cool. All right, guys, before we wrap up, Manish, I got to do my engineering friends a solid and ask you, are you hiring? What kind of roles are you hiring for? And what's the email address people should spam you on?
Manish@coinbase.com.
Manish at Coinbase.
Manish@manish.com.
But to answer your question, yes, we are hiring for all levels. Like as I said, all functions, junior, senior, multi-year experience, Web 1, Web 2 experience, all of that totally welcome. But more specifically, I think there is going to be a huge density of engineers who are going to be Web 3 natively from the very beginning. I think that's the level of talent where the supply is very minimal and the demand is just so insane. I think that's where we would love to actually make this the base where we can hire and attract a bunch of engineers.
Is that your way of saying, I just want to go home. Can you guys please come join my team?
Please come join. Yes.
This is the burnout that Gyan was talking about. All right, guys, before we leave, one-line elevator pitch for Web 2 talent to join Web 3. One-line elevator pitch before we wrap up.
I would say if you want to be your own boss and want to work with cutting-edge technologies, and you think that you can make a difference in the upcoming years, then come join Web3.
Cool, there were many lines, but okay.
It was one line. See, it was comma, comma.
It's a lot of commas for my liking.
Okay, so I think for me, if I were to give a pitch to a Web 2 person, it would be that come build, innovate in the space which is going to be used by millions of people from a decade from now. Come build for a free, transparent, fair, and a decentralized world.
I would say come build and have a piece of ownership in the future internet.
I'll say it's happening. It is inevitable. Come join it or be left behind.
Ooh, wait,
Email
can
manish@manish.com today. On that note.
Can I get a do-over? Because
Oh, sure. You get half a sentence this time. I'm kidding. Go for it.
if you want to come build for the masses, then Web3 is the place to be.
And make it happen.
Yes.
Yes.
And make it happen.
Awesome. On that note, please, ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for Manish, Shan, Richa, Gyan. Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. And I hope you guys have a good day.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again from the Coinbase India team, please welcome on stage Pankaj Gupta.
Hi, everyone. It's me again. What a great panel that was, and a great morning session. To close this morning session out, I wanted to recap 3 things as takeaways from this session, and then I'll let you go for lunch and networking. So the 3 takeaways, just to recap, 3 slides that we have already seen in the session and this morning. The first slide, the first message, is about crypto and Web3 being the next big thing. Revolutionary technologies. So everybody who's here today or watching online, well, you are in the right place. Second, Coinbase is investing significantly in India. We are interested in hiring, investing in Indian startups, interested in acquiring Indian startups, and today we are starting out the process of experimentation by rolling out a simple and safe user experience for buying and selling crypto assets with rupees. Over the next several days, weeks, and months, we will continue this process of experimentation. Finally, the third takeaway is that you can get started on this journey with crypto today. And we will help you in this journey. We'll give you rupees 201 in Bitcoin on your first buy of any crypto asset on Coinbase. And we are slowly ramping this, as some of you might see a waitlist option on our app. And when you are admitted to the waitlist and you can make a buy, then you can make use of this promo code called CB1st. So friends, that's it for this session. Please enjoy the lunch, network with your Web3 and crypto peers, browse the NFT gallery, browse the product booth, and just enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Members of the media, please proceed to the living room on level 2 for lunch and the media briefing room. Members of the media, please proceed to the living room on level 2 for lunch and the media briefing. Thank you. Once again, members of the media, please proceed.